I was brought in on the Lawrence team in April of 2012.
I've been in the city of Lawrence for 22 years now.
And I've been here this year now 36 years.
I'm in my 35th year.
The only mayor I haven't worked for in the city of Lawrence is Mayor Settles. Everyone else I've worked under.
I've had the opportunity to work for every mayor of the city of Lawrence except the first mayor, which is Mayor Settles. The administration prior to the Collier administration was very, to be honest, it was rough.
I think Mayor Jessup of himself was a honorable man, but I think it was largely the people that he had surrounded himself with.
There was a lot of oversight on what we could do with the funding, of not having enough money to get the cars fixed and not having money to do this or do that. So yeah, it was a stressful time.
I can attest to the fact that the utility, the morale was pretty low. There was no real forward momentum on anything. There did not even seem to be a vision for the city.
City kind of lost its shadow. We were just status quo flat.
We had to hold off on repairs. We were borrowing tires and other parts. We were just basically told pretty much no on anything that we needed to function as a fire department.
I didn't really have any political inclinations at all. I was a teacher and a coach and so on. But I also saw a real need for some, what I would call dynamic, or a leader with some vision that could take the city to another level. Cities like Fishers and Noblesville seemed to be growing at a very rapid pace, but Lawrence wasn't doing much. I think for too many years, that was kind of the accepted norm, that no change is good. And I knew that if I was going to be that person who would bring the city out of its comfortableness, I would ruffle some feathers.
We turn our attention now to Lawrence, where incumbent Dean Jessup is now out of a job. It was a tough battle, but Republican City Councilman Steve Collier beat Jessup with more than 55% of the vote.
Collier tells me he's very much looking forward to day one in office. He says some of his first priorities will include meeting with local business leaders, working to improve economic development, and making Lawrence a destination city for visitors.
So I'll never forget getting the call from a newly elected mayor, Steve Collier, would I have an interest in becoming the city controller. And so I didn't know a whole lot about Lawrence. And so before I met with him, I Googled Lawrence and noticed a week after he got elected, S&P downgraded the water utility to junk status.
The water utility was pretty much bankrupt, and the sewer utility, while maintaining its own, was going to need some kind of adjustment here real soon.
And then, of course, I meet Mayor Collier for the first time.
I told him that we were in pretty bad shape. I'd been here and I'd looked at it long enough, and I told him, I said, this is going to be quite a challenge.
The city was on the brink of financial ruin, and not a lot of people knew that or understood that. I don't think anybody really understood that.
He basically said, hey, I just want you to know this place is a mess. And he was right.
That turned out to be the exact right thing to do with him. Luring him into the city by challenging him, saying how bad it will be.
He was so genuine in what his vision for the city was, which was literally just to fix things. And so he had me sold.
He and I were of the same mind. We know what we got. What we're going to do is set a path for the future. What I didn't know at the time was that interviewing for these positions was kind of unique. In the past, they'd always just been appointees, political appointees. That didn't seem like a very intelligent way to replace people.
I applied to be the chief of police. I applied online. Sure enough, I got a phone call asking for an interview.
We had 8 people that sat down for the interview. When Dave was done, he literally blew it out of the water. My problem was, could I get him away from IMPD? He was making $20,000 more a year than I could pay him as my chief of police at the time. I took him out to breakfast. I said, if I offer this job, are you going to take it? Boom, right away, he said yes, absolutely. And then he went through telling me all the reasons why he wanted to be here in the city of Lawrence. I just hit a home run.
When he called me after all the interviews, he goes, do you know Steve Collier? 2 things. I don't like being blindsided. I like to know things up front. And I need you to be an advocate for your firefighters. Easy. Those words were great to hear.
We're not going to worry about where we're coming from. We're going to set a path to where we want to get to. As a city, we were primed for growth.
In January, the first day we come in here, Sondi Solutions discovered that the servers were extremely old.
It had crashed and we lost a lot of data.
I think I'd been here all of about 3 weeks, and the software that we use, New World, you had to upgrade it in order for payroll to get the W-2s out. So we were literally here on a Friday night until midnight on pins and needles, praying that the server and the software, the upgrade would stick. Thankfully, it worked. And then over the next 3 to 4 months, we transitioned to the cloud with our ERP provider, so we eliminated the server risk that we had.
It's hard for me to remember how bad it was. Jason and I would meet, every day, trying to figure out what we had. Come to work in the dark, we'd go home in the dark.
He had a good climb upward. The water was in bad shape. The city financial wasn't in the best of shape. Actually, and the most important thing was the city working morale was terrible.
I had brought the deputy controller that worked with me in Anderson here, Jason Streeter, and he and I the first 3 months literally could not balance our books to the bank statements.
We had been nearly bankrupt just 2 years before that. We had an operating reserve of about $250,000, which is essentially like nothing.
We were borrowing a lot of money from the state of Indiana just to operate.
And that borrowing would cost the city a few $100,000 in interest a year. And so one of the initial goals the mayor and I talked about was we got to establish some general fund reserve targets.
There just hadn't been a whole lot of attention paid to how a city can use a variety of different financial tools to be able to take advantage of what municipalities can do.
For 4 years, I was told that we had no money. I didn't even have enough money to get my front door fixed. It would blow open sometimes to the little tiny foyer that we had over there, and I actually had to fix it with a lanyard tie. We actually have pictures of all the things that we did to try and fix things. Can't say enough about Fenwick's whole team, just making the city upright again.
The mayor and I negotiated police and fire contracts for the first time in years.
We hadn't had a contract, the police department had not had a contract with the FOP in 4 years.
It was just like every couple months it was, what? Fenwick did this, we were able to get this or buy that. It was just crazy how he was coming up with ways to push the police department to where it needed to be.
Our training budget for the City of Lawrence Police Department was very, very low. And I think we quadrupled our training budget in that very first year. I want everybody to know, cameras rolling, high definition, video, audio, what you say is going to be captured, what I say is going to be captured, and we're all going to be above board here.
With Jason's financial background and his planning, along with the mayor, if it's something we really needed, they found a way to make it happen.
It was very evident when I became chief of police that we had a problem with our vehicles. That was the first thing I noticed. We had some cars out there with more than 200,000 miles on them.
We felt it was important to, every 5 years, the fleet should have effectively been turned over. I think a combination of things that the mayor set out as priorities boosted morale pretty quickly and pretty early on.
When Steve come about, people perked up. He put us all together as a team, and now we're solid.
We were able to get a handle on what our finances were and kind of nurse our way through that first year.
When we submitted for the first GFOA budget award, part of that was just a message of positivity. Like, hey, look, our financials are no longer laughable. We're earning awards for our financials now.
At the end of that first year, we had $2 million in OR. That was a big victory for us back in 2017 to have that kind of operating reserve.
Once you stabilize a municipality financially, you can get better bond ratings. Your bond rating increases. That means you can borrow money or bond money at a lower interest rate. Ultimately, it saves the city money, and you're able to move projects forward that need to get done without putting the city in a financial hardship. The government center was never intended to be a home for the police department. We had to move out of 4455 McCoy Street. During an emergency situation, we had 2 inches of brown water in the basement. So we had to get out of there. And it was never intended to be permanent. Well, there we were 10 years later. If our police department is going to be a legitimate law enforcement organization moving forward, we need a home.
Our utility, both on sewer and in water, had junk bond status. They were in terrible, terrible financial shape. We had superintendents who were political appointees who didn't really know how to run a water and sewer utility.
The city has 2 main water treatment plants. That's a tremendous asset for the city, but one you have to continue to maintain. I don't think anything had been done in decades.
We'd gone through 3 previous administrations who were scared to death who had increased water rates, and we paid for it. I had meetings with 3 or 4 different people who wanted to come in and were offering to buy the utility. Luckily, for me anyway, I got to know Scott Salisbury real well. He should have been our utility superintendent a decade before.
You want to maintain local control of your water and sewer. When you surrender that right, then you're at the mercy of the private utilities, which are often driven by shareholders. Their bottom line is really all about profit, whereas we at the city, we're not a profit-earning utility. I tried to be very candid with him. He was very candid with me. He said, if the utilities are broke, we're gonna fix them. He says, I don't care if it costs me a re-election, we're gonna fix it.
We have an asset that we sit right on top of. We sit on top of the largest aquifer in central Indiana. Our water comes out of the ground. Our tanks are always full. And Scott and I were we were on the same page from the very first day, is that we were going to try and get things corrected.
Obviously, we had to address rates. There were no financials. There was really nothing as far as policies and procedures as it pertained to the finances. And so after we put all that in place, we put a presentation together of kind of where things have been versus where things are now and where things will be.
The vast majority of the increase, what we need is to fix the financial end, which is in really, really bad shape.
When Scott first came on, he wasn't a great public speaker. He'd never done it before. So we coached him on how to speak publicly, and he worked very hard. He was tireless in his work ethic.
This habit of waiting 10, 12, 15 years between rate increases is why there is no money in the utility.
I had no desire to get up and speak regularly before the Utility Service Board, or let alone the council, and still to this day am not a huge fan of public speaking. But he encouraged me, coached me. He was a mentor in the truest sense of that word. He set his expectations. I'm not going to do your job for you. You have to do your job. But if you need help, come and talk to me. That set the tone for the whole thing right there.
We were having some serious conversations about if we did not get an increase, that the utility may default on its bonds.
6-2, it is adopted.
All right, proposal number 7, amended version is adopted.
Keep in mind, we raised water rates over 50%. Now that's a huge increase in water rates. Thank you for stepping up to the plate and exhibiting the very kind of leadership that this city needs. Thank you for moving Lawrence forward. We will continue to be a great city with great people.
Thank you, Mayor.
Obviously, with a junk-rated utility, you're not going to be able to do much. Scott, the mayor, and I drove up to Chicago to meet with S&P and say, hey, here are all the things we've done. We'd like you to consider giving us an upgrade. About 6 weeks later, we got a 2-notch upgrade, so we were at least back to investment grade. Over the next 2 years, we got 3 more upgrades, so a grand total of 5.
Our bond rating had gone up 5 notches in the positive direction, which is kind of unheard of.
Once we got it upgraded to investment grade, we did our first bond issuance.
But this really is a new day for Lawrence Utility, where we can take care of what are critical needs for the city of Lawrence, and getting in a position where even years from now we'll be able to look back on this and say this is where it all started.
This really is the culmination of a vision, this new plant. It's the beginning of the realization of a vision to rehabilitate, to replace, to upgrade the city's infrastructure and make it top-notch.
We were reinvesting ongoing every year, $3 to $4 million back into the system in terms of new water mains, new meters. The Rich Hart water treatment plant and the Fort Harrison water treatment plant are effectively brand new. Both water towers have been rehabilitated, and yes, Scott, we did keep the hot air balloon that you fought so hard against.
So we have 2 water plants that can produce literally all the clean water we could conceivably think about doing. Perhaps a legacy that Scott will leave, and maybe me a little bit will be able to leave, is look what happened to the water utility under their leadership. For the next several decades, we're in pretty good shape. Got to remember, I was an athletic director. So part of my background was how to create larger events, how to bring people into the stadium, so to speak. You got to make sure that people want to come, and when they come here, they want to stay there.
Our July 4th was always a big event. It was ran primarily then by the Lions Club.
We had an Easter egg hunt, in the spring. We had July 4th parade. We had a Halloween costume contest in the park. Pretty much that was it. My goal was to try to create an event that people want to come to at least 10 times a year. We took the Lawrence Christmas and expanded it and wanted to make it into a big event. First year, we had all the department heads climbed on board and built our floats. We had a little parade, and it was amazing how much they did. Probably had maybe 150 people, 200 people show up for it. That was a big success for us.
It started out small, but then it just grew by leaps and bounds.
3, 2, 1.
He wanted to get back to those community-wide events that anybody could come to.
Back in the day, all we had was the 4th of July parade. That's all we really had. But now we have Farmers Market, Black History Month. We just have a bunch of things that bring our community together.
That's what this city is all about, bringing people of all different backgrounds together to enjoy each other and learn from each other and grow.
Since I've started working with the city, I've noticed the growth and diversity with just our events.
Fiesta Lawrence really celebrates our Latino community, and we look forward to expanding it and having Fiesta Lawrence go global this year.
People now know in other cities, like, oh yeah, Lawrence has a bilingual farmers market. They have all of these events that cater to everyone and are so inclusive. It's grown a lot.
We have something going on virtually every month where people can come to Lawrence and spend some time. All these things just keep growing. I mean, we had over 2,400 people at last year's tree lighting. I think that's probably some of my most joyous times. It's so encouraging seeing people that really want to engage with the city and want to be a part of the city.
It's been a tremendous growth, and that growth has happened because of the vision of the mayor, along with all the partnerships that we have established.
I love the Civic Plaza. I was really excited to go to that opening because, not that I want to toot other cities, but it looked like some of the other larger cities around us. This is truly a destination spot now.
The bigger the tree, the bigger the number of people that came. This is what I envisioned it to be. And here it is, it's happened.
When you're out in the public and you hear people talk about it, it's pretty heartwarming. It's pretty awesome.
Can't make promises if you know you don't have the resources to fulfill them. So to pitch these things like new police station, it was a big ask.
The idea of having a standalone police station, to me, just made so much sense. Jason and I talked about this shoot in January, February of 2016 about, can we get a police station built?
We were able to finance the police station project, coordinating with some bonds rolling off from the city.
We're happy to transform this property into something really awesome for the city of Lawrence and all of our residents and the police officers, detectives, civilian support staff, all those who are going to call this site home for their employment.
We were allowed to design and purpose build this facility, not just for today, not just for the day we cut the ribbon on it, but for 25 and 30 years down the road. This facility will meet the needs of the community and of the police officers that work out of here.
Being included on building a new police station with a 911 center is just amazing.
In November of 2019, we were able to cut the ribbon on that beautiful, new, efficient police station that is befitting a city our size.
We finally moved out of our parents' basement and got a place of our own. And we're excited about that. I'm still excited about that. It's an honor to come in here every day, finally having a home.
Unbeknownst to us in our office, we actually do have a city flag. So when we took a look at it, this is the current city flag.
The old city flag seemed pretty outdated, so when Ethan had the idea to work on a new flag, he brought it to the council. Everybody loved this new flag. He also designed a city seal, which we kind of adopted as our new logo.
One of the things that the mayor did was really look at what Lawrence is. We needed to brag about it more. I think it's pretty amazing when you look at the momentum of all that's happened in the fort and you see all the new development, not just the housing, but the businesses that are being attracted.
We're seeing almost $400 million of economic development just in the last 4 years in the city of Lawrence. That's never happened before.
He's put together a strong team to help market the city, to help get the word out to what is happening in Lawrence that makes people want to come visit, that makes people want to come live here.
I've noticed the local community does really care about what's happening. It makes me really proud to show people what's happening. They really appreciate that, and then they can be a part of it. One of the things we've done is highlight local restaurants, which is really fun to do because I get to eat a lot of great food. I get to meet these restaurant owners who are such great people and help tell their story, sometimes with video, sometimes with just photos. I think in turn that makes people want to bring their business to Lawrence.
The city of Lawrence is certainly being viewed in a very, very positive light right now, and that's a tribute to my staff and to the people working for me.
You look at what we have happening within the heart of Lawrence, everything from our bike shares to our pickleball courts to the new civic plaza, creating this great sense of space that really makes Lawrence the place to be. And I believe that's because of the work of the mayor and what he has done to really help Lawrence succeed.
Things like the Community Crossroad Grant, the SWIFT grants, going out and getting money to be able to invest in our capital improvements, all those are somewhat new to the city of Lawrence. Being able to have access to the kind of investment, both private and public partnerships, are all going to pave the way for a really bright future for the city of Lawrence. I'm happy to say that in the last probably 2 years, I've had more people come to me that have expressed a desire to move into Lawrence than I've ever had before. We're doing a great job of selling ourselves to the community right now. I'm as proud as I could conceivably be by the people by my staff and their effort. People seem to be all in.
I think the reason people work so hard for him is that he trusts you and he lets you do what you need to do.
That's one of the things I like most about Steve Collier. He hires people to do a job who are qualified to do it, and then he lets them do it. And he listens.
He always says that he's smart enough to surround himself with good people, and yeah, he's done that. But largely the credit goes to him for being that person with the vision. Doing what's best for the development of the city is what Mayor Collier has been all about, not politics.
He put the red and the blue stuff aside and decided to just do what's right for the city.
I mean, everything he's done in his, what will be 8 years in Lawrence, to me, it's the greatest 8 years in the history of Lawrence, and it's all because of Mayor Collier.
I hope that in some way I've been able to encourage and to motivate them to do the kinds of things that we can do. I think that kind of fed on itself. So success kind of breeds success. And I believe that a lot of people were really, they got excited by it. Lawrence as a city has its own history. We have a history, but we also have a great future ahead of us.